Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Mary Grace Pennella, so please give her a warm round of applause.
Awesome! Thank you, sir. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. What a great looking tribe. I'm loving this. Give yourselves a round of applause. Way to go. Weren't the first two speakers fabulous? Round of applause for them. So I have to tell you, when I thought about what I would talk about up here, I'm looking for big, bold, grand gestures of love that are going to change the world. And then I kind of got a hold of myself and realized there's only one man who, through an act of love, changed the world. And reality is, I'm not him. But oh my goodness, I opened my eyes and there are love acts everywhere, all around us, every minute, begging to be noticed. So I want to start with this quote from Hafiz. "Awake, my dear, be kind to your sleeping heart. Take it out into the vast fields of light and let it breathe." So here I am in my world, with my heart out and breathing. This could be a good thing, and what did I find? Okay, first thing is, I got a little peanut who can barely reach the handle of a door, and he's holding that door open for an elderly couple. It's a tiny little act, yes, but it was big for him. And then you get near that couple, and they're 89 and 90. He's barely stable on his feet, but he is holding her handbag because she's even less stable on her feet. But this is the best part of all. You get near them and you can feel the love they have for one another. And they shared with me the fact that on their wedding day, they made a promise to one another to never go to bed angry. And both of them separately admitted to the fact that 60 plus years later, they're still keeping that promise. Now that's a bold act of love, wouldn't you say? Absolutely. But let's take it down again. Let's look at little things. Like, I was in my office the other day, and apparently I looked like I wasn't having a good day, and one of my patients, after she left me, came back with some flowers for me. How delightful, how sweet. What a nice little gesture of love. And how about those notes? You know, those notes you leave for people, those notes that you find in your lunchbox or maybe on your day timer. Don't those bring a smile to your face? That's another act of love. But how about this? There's a little girl I know who was starting middle school this year. And you know how hard middle school is, right? You know, it's big insecurities. And mom and dad know this, so when they went to the parent-teacher conference, they snuck into her locker and plastered it with little love notes. Wouldn't you have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see her reaction when she opened her locker and saw those notes? How awesome. And how about the two brothers? One's a freshman in high school. Again, another tough year. But he's got a little brother who's starting that middle school year. And he's not so concerned about himself, but he is watching out for that little guy. And one day, he realizes, oh my goodness, he didn't bring the sneakers for track. So he surreptitiously texts mom, says he's missing his track shoes, needs them. Dun, da, 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 mom to the rescue, track shoes. Crisis averted, love enacted. And how about mom's love? Could we not go on for hours, days, and weeks about the level of love that's capable once you become a mom? Unbelievable. And let's not leave dads out. Their love is absolutely as visible. It manifests differently. Watch this one, though. I was at a sporting event the other day, and there was this little tiny guy. You know the kind, just barely knows how to walk, but knows how to get into trouble, seriously, really well. So he's, kind of doing his thing and gonna go off the rails any minute now. And dad's watching him. And instead of correcting him, because at that age, you really begin to worry if they think they have 3 first names. No, don't, and stop. And so instead of that, he scooped him up and buried his face in his belly and just did raspberries all over his belly. And that little kid just peeled with laughter and giggles. And dad was giggling too. And mischief managed, love enacted. How awesome is that? But this next one, this one touches my heart. It's an observation of an observation. I know this young lady who is a second year at Ball State, and she's an observer. She looks at the world and processes it and shares, and I love listening to what she has to say, and especially when she posts it on Facebook. She was in Wendy's the other day, and she observed a gentleman who was clearly a homeless man come in and ask for a cup of coffee. The manager came out from behind the grill, took money out of his pocket, and paid for that coffee. Love act number one. Next, the woman behind him asked him what he wanted to eat, and he demurred and said no, that wasn't necessary. But she insisted, and she bought him a meal, which was probably no more than $4. And second love act, and she's on her way. And this young lady is standing here witnessing this, and she looked into the eyes of this person who received this small act of love. His eyes were overflowing with love and gratitude and thanksgiving that someone recognized his need and provided it. Tiny acts, not so much. An act of kindness, absolutely. And what is kindness? But love made visible, love in action. So the next one I want to tell you about is Sandy. Sandy has been planning for her 40th high school reunion for days, weeks, months, all of us were. And comes to that weekend and she finds out that her cousin, who, backstory on her cousin, is single, has no children, and is now an orphan. Her parents are deceased, is facing cancer surgery that weekend. So where is Sandy? With her cousin, not at the party. And you know, when you find corporate acts of kindness, please share them liberally. Let the world know that that's what's going on. I work with a company called Standard Process, and a day in August this year, they had one day, one bottle, one meal. They make vitamins, and they sell them to doctors' offices. And so that day, for every bottle sold, they were going to donate one meal to the homeless. So that day, collectively, the docs of this country bought 53,800 bottles of supplements. But you know what? The story doesn't end there. Standard Process decided that number wasn't good enough, so they decided to take it up some. So they gave away 55,000 meals in over 200 different shelters around the country. Now that's big and bold and an action of love nonetheless. You see, love always multiplies. It never divides. There's always more. So I want to share this next quote with you from my profession. B.J. Palmer was the developer of chiropractic, and he says, "You never know how far-reaching something you think, say, or do today will affect lives of millions tomorrow." So let's talk about that great ripple effect, you know, Facebook. I hope every one of you have a wonderful ripple effect going on in your Facebook pages that are positive and uplifting. But after I tell you this story, you're going to want my Facebook page. So this little 8-year-old boy, and you know, raise your hand if you saw this story, but this little 8-year-old boy was at lunch one day, and his best friend was denied a hot lunch. And he was very confused by that, and he didn't understand. So he asked his mom, and she said to him, well, he didn't have any more money in his lunch account. Oh my goodness, something lit a fire within this child, and at 8 years of age, he raised $7,000 so that no child in that school would be denied a hot lunch that year. Can we get a round of applause for a little dude who did a big thing, a big act of love? Absolutely. And another friend of mine on Facebook makes it his mission every day to find a story, and he calls it today's example of good in the world. And it always is. And I love sharing it, but more important, it has inspired me to go find my own examples of good in the world and put it out on Facebook. How awesome is that? And what about the story from the Italian news service? Because I know you're all on the Italian news service, right? Absolutely. Being the ex-president of the Italian Heritage Society, it's an obstacle. It just happens. So one day, the police were called to a home of an elderly couple. And the reason they were called was because there was crying was heard coming from this couple's home. So when the police got there, you know, thinking, what's going on? They weren't the victim of a crime. They were lonely. So while they waited for the ambulance to come and check them out and make sure they really were okay, the policeman asked if they could have access to their pantry. And they made them a simple meal of pasta. And they sat there with them while they ate. and they were present in their lives. Tiny little acts. How about the two Olympians who were in the 5,000 meter race? That may not be the right thing because I don't do Summer Olympics, but they fell. One tripped the other or what have you, but they both went down. One was able to get up and conceivably could keep running, but she came back and picked the other one up. They both finished, no medals, no personal best times, but a personal best because it was love in action. How awesome is that? So, in summing things up, there's so many loves in action. I couldn't keep them all straight. I couldn't get them all into one presentation. So I have a challenge for you. This being Walk the Talk, I want you to go out and notice them. You know, the world's full of fear and rhetoric, and it's ugly, but it doesn't need to be. Because when you notice all the little love in action all around you, that fades to the background where it belongs. So I want you to speak about it, be about it, shout it from the rooftops. Notice when you do something that is an act of love, watch the ripples happen. They go out from the center and they make the world a better place. You might argue everything I talked about today was small and tiny, and you might think it didn't really do much of anything for anybody. But I say it's changing the world. And I don't know about you, but I think the world needs changing. And I think it's up to each one of us to change it. So I'm going to leave you with this last Hafiz quote that says, "Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, 'You owe me.'" Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the world. Go light your world. Namaste.
All right. Thank you, Mary Grace. Thank you. Thank you. I think she's a good example of love in action. Don't you guys think so? And next time I find somebody to blow raspberries on their belly, I'll think of what she says. The little things that show love, right?
Exactly.
Okay.